What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for joining tonight. Tonight's guest needs no introduction. If you don't know who Matt Martin is, because, I mean, if you're on my channel, you know who Matt Martin is. So, I hope everybody's having a great week, a great Friday night. I hope their week was well, wasn't too stressful. I had a great week. And I hope tonight's show can just be a way to kick off a good, relaxing weekend, some laughs, some good stories, whatever you want to, whatever we talk about tonight. I hope it just leads you into a good weekend. So, Matt, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. How are you,
doing
sir?
Well. There you go.
Dub horn.
That's not he's the one with the professional setup, so I don't have any of those fancy tools. How was your week?
It was good. It was good. I actually spent the week on the road, half the week on the road, which was kind of tough. I don't like spending time away from my family, but sometimes you got to do it. And so put in some long hours while I was back home. Of course, you know, always working on new projects and stuff, and so trying to get the rest of that finalized, and a lot of the research we're doing, getting a lot of that final. Right now is super crunch time, and I don't have a whole lot of time to think or plan. I kind of rely on the direction I go, and then I meander that way and try and go as hard as I can. How was your week? Look at your beard. Your beard looks great, by the way.
Thank you. This is a winter thing I do as soon as winter hits. I shave the day before winter, and I don't shave at all during winter. I just let it go, and it's surprising.
You trim your mustache.
Oh yeah, I
though,
keep
right?
that trim because I can't stand it rolling into my mouth. That's just irritating.
I was gonna say, if it grows in naturally like that without any kind of trimming or maintenance, that's scary, and we may have to end this right now.
No, I don't know. YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. So if it's choppy, sorry people. I'm doing my best. Maybe I need to put some more quarters in my router. I don't know. But no, yeah, I definitely take care of the mustache. I can't stand that thing curling in my lip, and I don't know. It's just that's one thing I trim and whatnot. But hey, Matt, since you're here and since you're famous for roll call, How about we just do a little roll call action since you're here?
I want to thank everybody for tuning in right now. We're going to give a big roll call. Coming in number one. Wait. I don't have the entire history of the chat, but I do see. I can't remember who was. I only go up to Kenny Cooper as being the first commenter, but I know he was not the first one in here.
Yeah, I know. I can't remember either. Mike.
So I don't know who gets the award for who.
I don't know. I don't know who was the first one in here.
Okay. Well, Kenny, we'll give you number 2 for trying or whatever. Jamie, the accountant, Reinish. That's what I'm talking about. Paul Smith, Logan Coleman, Gray Fox, John Vaughan, Aldo Beltran, Jimmy, the nice man Lewis. Can't. You can always count on kindness from Jimmy. Is in here. Grace Ortiz is gracing us with Mr. Hoover. Dang it, Hoover! From the keyhole, good sir. Bush League Lawns holding down St. Louisville. And our good friend Jordan Farmer, the Long Whisperer, South Jersey Long Guy, Elevated Mo's Low, Jake the Lawn Kid, Located Landscapes, and Dennis Page. All right, there we go. We made it through. Chips and Guac is in here as well, too.
You just stepped up my podcast to like... It was never a 10. It was maybe a 5. It just went to like 15 or 20 just with the roll call.
Just the energy level.
Yeah.
Just the energy level.
I don't know. You just have that. Now I know where your son gets your energy or his energy.
It was funny. We were talking about that beforehand. And you know, as when I was younger, I had all of this energy and I bottled it all up and I repressed it. No lie. Like I was quiet. And I worked hard at school and I did really well at school and I put a lot of effort into it and I was very just quiet. And then it was sometime after college that I just was like, you know what? I am so tired of repressing all this and I got to get it all out.
I was never like a high energy person. I've always been relatively reserved. I've just never been that way. I've never like held back anything that like what you're talking about. That's never been me. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I wish I had that kind of energy or that radio spirit that you have because it catches you. It sucks you in. It makes you want to be where that person is. You're like, man, he sounds interesting. I want to go hear what he has to say.
I promise you, there's not a lot of interesting stuff I'm saying. I try and present it well. It's all an act. I'm just a character. I'm not like this in real life.
Well, I don't know. I mean, when I met you for the first time at the GIE, no, you're not your radio show guy, but you still got some pep.
Yeah. I am. I'm still pretty wild and real. You can ask like my business partner. He has to tell me to shut up all the time. He's like, listen, you got to bring it down. It's too early in the morning for you to be screaming at me like that.
What's his name again? I know it. That's
John
right.
Borden.
So what's your off season been like since, winter and fall?
Oh man. It was nuts. At first it was like really scary and depressing. And then, it's progressively gotten crazier and crazier and crazier and crazier the closer we get to the season. So, really, I would say, for us, typically the season starts around February 1st. And so up to this point, it's been gearing up for everything to start taking place on February 1st. Unfortunately, you always encounter delays and all that stuff. And so, maybe March 1st is more realistic. But yeah, it's been real busy. I spent just a ton of time in the lab and trying to just take my level of understanding of things from a technical level and expand upon that. And then also put forth just a bunch of goals to achieve. So I spent a lot of time this break just sitting with John, my partner, and plotting out ideas on the whiteboard and trying to connect dots and see what we can make a reality and what we can't have a reality. I am the kind of person, I'll work really well on stated goals and trying to get to that. So that's that's what we like to do. We have these sessions, we call them shut-ins, where we'll turn off the phones, we'll go into the meeting room, choice adult beverages brought in, and literally sit in front of a whiteboard and just throw everything at it and see what sticks.
I mean, I feel like that's like a brainstorming session, right? You just throw it. May be a wild and crazy idea, but you got to throw it out there because hey, maybe it's something that turns into gold.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That is. And between that too, I actually, I spent a lot of time with the wife and kids too. So we've been going to the mountains a lot here recently. We found the spot we like where there's not a lot of people, and so we've been going up there often too.
Well, I've watched a few of those your family videos you've been making on that. It's a separate channel, right? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I
yeah, yeah,
thought.
yeah. The fan factor.
I've been watching a few of those.
Cheap plug.
What'd you say?
Cheap plug.
You can throw it in the chat. I don't mind if you plug it.
No, 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 no. Go check out the fan factor on YouTube. Subscribe, hit the bell.
uh,
I'm not gonna do that.
no, I've really liked those videos because it gives the audience a different appreciation of like you and your family life because obviously everything on the Grass Factor channel it's all business in regards to specifically lawn care. I mean, I know, and sometimes in the show you might rattle off something about your kids or whatever, or they'll come in the stream. I know I've seen that from time to time, but that I really like those kind of deals to show people what those YouTubers are like and their families, because sometimes people can just see a talking head and they don't realize that hey, you're a human too. You got a family and kids and all that kind of stuff. So, um,
You know, and I'll tell you the story. The whole reason I started YouTube was it kind of functioned as therapy for me. Because when I moved to Knoxville, I was so broke, and we had just started the spray business and had no money, and it was 100 degrees outside, and I had been treating this 4-acre property, and I was just like, "Ah, what am I doing with my life?" And I felt like I had an above average level of understanding of turf grass, and so I just thought to myself, and at the time, to try and find motivation, I had turned on to YouTube and was looking for people who made YouTube content. And of course, back then, you'd see Alan on there. You would see Geek the Freak. Greg Chisholm was on there. Keith Kalfas was on there. This is back when Stan Genetic was a real tiny YouTube channel too, the Dirt Monkey.
mm-hmm.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start talking to the camera about the things that I understand and the things I know and the decisions I'm trying to make, and just see what happens. And so I totally just started talking to the camera purely to distract myself from the situation I was in, and it kind of grew from there. Well, now with the family videos, it's kind of the same concept, right? Because there's nothing easy about parenting. Parenting is the most complex task as an adult that anybody would ever face. And so, my wife and I were talking about it, and obviously more than I do, because we had to homeschool and stuff this year. So it was a way for us to talk to the camera and show the things we're going through, and yeah, just distract ourselves from the nuances and complexity and sometimes painful moments of being a parent, right? So, you know, that's that's the origin of the fan factor, at least.
Well, it's funny that you talk about you started the YouTube thing as an outlet or a therapeutic, because we actually talked about that in the last week's episode with turf therapy from Rob.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the main things we talked about during the show is like where kind of our story of getting involved with lawn care and starting YouTube and stuff like that. And you were one of the original ones that I found after Alan, that kind of I was inspired to kind of start, recording stuff in my own lawn and those types of things. And I actually remember reaching out to you through email, and kind of voicing that to you and just thanking you for what you do and all that kind of stuff. You probably don't remember that because
No,
you probably get tons
I
of
I
thank
do.
yous and emails.
I have the history of it too, so I can go back to that very original email. Believe it or not, I remember. I don't know why, but I've always been fairly decent with names. At least I was up until now. Between 4 years ago and now feels like 30 years to me. And so, for the most part, I do remember that. Look, here we are. This was going to
Dang,
be.
you're digging way. That was like 2018.
It was 2000. It was May 27, 2018 at 11:44 p.m.
Wow, I sent it that late at night.
What were you doing? Well, it's an hour behind. It was
Oh, that's
10:44
true.
your
That's
time.
true. Yeah, I remember that was when that was at the house I just moved from over a year ago. That was when I was just starting to kind of learn how to take care of the lawn as far as like fertilizing and putting fungicides down and those types of things. Um,
Uh, how do you like the new house? Are you
yeah, I mean, it better feel like home after we've been locked up in it for the last year. No, we love it. I mean, we moved out a little bit farther west from where we were before from St. Louis. We're still like I consider us still in the St. Louis area. But we really like the house. It's just gives us a little bit more space to spread out and do our thing. And I love the lawn because it's over double the size. Plus, I'm not dealing with a mountain.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I just couldn't stand that thing. But it has been passed on and bequeathed to someone else, which I hope they haven't died on it yet. But the new house we really like, the neighborhood we like the area. It's kind of the area we live in now is very similar to where I grew up down in Dallas, Texas, where you could kind of go out, you know, a minute on the road and it feels like you're out in the middle of nowhere. It's kind of the same deal where we are now because before
Hmm.
we were really close to we were in the St. Louis County area, so you had to drive pretty far to feel like you're out in the middle of nowhere. And now we can drive 3 5 minutes down the road and you're in the middle of a cornfield. So I kind of I like that. I like having that city feel, but not city feel. I don't know if I could ever really like live out in true like rural areas, but this is about as close to that as I can get.
Ah, do it, man. Just bite the bullet and build the Hicks. Live in a tent.
Live in
All
a
kinds of
tent.
craziness. No, I tell you what you do. You know the shipping containers that they bring in on the ships.
Yeah, yeah,
Convert some shipping containers into a tiny house and
yeah.
just rough it.
Just rough. That'd be truly roughing it with three kids under 4 years old.
Don't do that.
um.
That's a bad
Well, we're
idea.
already pretty far into the show, but I see a lot of new faces, many familiar faces. I just want to kind of say to all the new people on the show, this show is not really a Q&A style. It's not an interview style. It's just me and my co-host hanging out and with everyone in the chat. And we try to include as much as possible everybody in the chat. If you have any questions or topics, throw those in the chat and we'll try to get to them. It is sometimes difficult to keep up with it, and so I do apologize if I miss it. If we miss it, don't be afraid to put it in there again, just to remind us. Matt is a professional in the industry, like probably most of everybody in the chat knows. He's a professional, knows a hell of a lot more about lawn care than I do, so we'll take advantage of him all night long.
That's why John Falken came to me in the chat, was for that moment right there.
But yeah, seriously, if you guys have any questions related to lawn care stuff, I won't even attempt to answer them. Those are all going to Matt. I'm just here to watch and listen and learn with all of you guys. So, but yeah, that's kind of how I've rolled. I roll the show. Keep it pretty light. This isn't like Matt's normal Q&A style stuff. Matt, where'd you go? All I see is a flag.
The timer times out on this camera. I'm not using my normal one, and so um, I had to do this. Hang on one second. Let me. Oh, there we go. We're back.
No, you're good. You're good. So yeah, just wanted to kind of briefly mention that and all that fun jazz. So, Matt, I know you if I you started a new or a new company, right? You got a new fertilizer company that you're going with. Can you speak to that at all? Is it called Renovo?
I can't get into a lot of specifics of that.
Okay.
So what I can talk about though is that there is Subvert, subvertnpk.com.
Oh, okay.
And that's kind of a piece of some of the stuff we worked with before. We just kind of converted into a liquid form. Everything on the dry side of things is, um, I still can't talk about it yet, but and I want to so bad. And I'm so sorry that I keep doing this. But I have to be ultra careful, and I have to make sure that nothing, it doesn't get interrupted or delayed or broken up somehow. So I have to be very careful. But so on paper, and right now that I feel comfortable talking about, is that in the future we have plans to continue doing some of the things that we were previously doing. But in the meantime, we're continuing to work down the line of developing new liquid fertilizer technologies.
That's exciting. So are you still is a big part of what you're doing? Is it still contain like the biochar and those types of things, or is that stuff that you can't get into?
I can say that there is a lot of that is still going on. Yes. Yes, and yes.
I should have asked you this before we ever started. What I can and can't ask you about. That's the other thing about all this, guys. I don't. None of this is scripted. I don't have an outline. I just kind of we just shoot from the hip and just go with it. So,
Yeah, even when we were doing like the camera checks and stuff, and I will contest to this. There was nothing in the background that we were talking about. Like, oh, should we discuss this? Should
yeah.
we do that? Just had a conversation.
So do you guys like is all the did you have to like change all factories and stuff like that, or is that
Oh yeah, yeah. The old place is gone. It's still there, from what I understand. And to be honest, what's going on with it? I hear stuff trickle to the grapevine, but that place is no longer existed, and so everything that we're doing from this point forward is offsite, new locations, new everything's, and just a lot. I'll put it this way: everything we're doing on that regard, we're having to be very crafty about, and a lot of self work. I've spent a lot of time with a welder in my hand over the last 2.5 months, and that's fine because that's the part I miss so much about being in lawn care was even with outdoor designs, you come back at the end of the day and somebody broke a frame on a mower or something, and I get to fire up the MIG welder and get out there and nasty, gnarly gorilla beads, I would call them, and I'd feel like a superhero. I was like, man, I really did. I'm a man. I welded today, and so now I get to kind of scratch that itch again and get crafty and be like, listen, I know this doesn't fit, but I can weld it and make it fit.
I didn't know you knew how to weld.
I learned on YouTube. I'm not good at it. Don't get me wrong. I am not good. Welding tips and tricks, Jody on YouTube, I can say is my instructor, and I learn everything I know from him. And thank you, Jody, if you're listening out there.
They're not listening. No one listens to this.
It's all right. I'm not a good welder anyway. If I showed him one of my beads, he would kick me out.
So being a DIYer myself, you know, what has it been like for you to see a lot of the DIYers, YouTube channels coming on like a lot, and that obviously piquing a big interest for homeowners and stuff getting into lawn care? Has that been like a positive thing in your mind about uh maybe giving lawn care a bigger voice, even though it's not necessarily the professional side of things, but it's at least it's some aspect of things, even though it's DIY.
Yeah, and I can kind of give you some insight on how it's perceived a little bigger than that, and then I'll kind of my take on it. Um, on the bigger picture of things, I can tell you at least how like pro lawn care guys kind of view the uprising of the DIY lawn care community, and it's kind of this break. It's very weird when you get into having your own spray business because the first few years you experience record growth. It's like, oh man, you're picking up customers and you're getting referrals and it's like grow, 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 grow. And then you kind of hit this point in your business where you need to get out of your business and work on your business. And that is a very difficult transition because the majority of people who go into business for themselves in lawn care are great technicians and they're not business people. And so trying to disassociate yourself as Matt the technician to become Matt the business owner it's almost traumatic, I think is a good way to put it, because it's such a stark contrast of what you founded the whole idea of you being a business owner is about. And what happens is that you end up capping your growth because you're not quite ready to give away being a technician. And you hit what I call the plateau, and there's a revenue amount where you hit the plateau, and maybe you have one other person that works for you, and you kind of split the duties, and you hit the lawn care plateau. And the people that are in the plateau look at it, and I'd say there's probably a bit of I'll use this word for lack of a better word, a bit of a threat, or maybe a little uneasiness, I think is more accurate way to put it, because these guys just took a huge risk to go into business for themselves and are out there, and there's people that are giving away quote unquote trade secrets. But as those people do relinquish control of the business and work on the business instead of in the business, it's almost like they completely forget about it because they're so overwhelmed with taking on all these new tasks and ideas and strategies. And now they have to become a marketing expert. Now they got to be a web design expert. Now they got to be a content writer. Now they have to be a social media content producer too. And then I think it's easier for them to look at it much more benevolently and more of a strategy and a partnership and something where you can easily commingle there. Now, from my perspective, and I'll be fully honest with you, and I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I am a purist at heart. I have an 80-year-old man's soul, and that's just the way I am. You can ask my wife. I'm just bizarre in that way, and so for me, that when you have no control over the types of information that are being put out there, there are so many times I turn on a YouTube video and I'm watching it and I hear a recommendation being made with authority, and I just facepalm so hard. And it's not often, it's not everybody. I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody, but I've turned on videos before. And it's just something that, if the right person was watching, it could be pursued in the wrong way. We've talked about this before. If there is as a young person, the green industry, even from the government perspective, and it's not like I'm some big fan of government, and I think there needs to be oversight and all this. That's not the direction I'm going. It's nothing to do with politics, but the people like the pesticide police, which there are legit pesticide police. Every state's Department of Agriculture has pesticide police, because when you're dealing with a pesticide, you're taking on a huge responsibility, whether you think it or not. It has the potential to take life. You may not think of plants as living, but they are, and you are working with a chemical that is designed to take life. And that is a big responsibility. And you're only typically a molecule or two away from how it affects the plant also being able to affect a human. So that's the other thing you have to keep in mind as well. So the industry, the old heads who are kind of the patriarchs of the industry right now are retiring. They're past their prime, and they're slowly but surely, one of the statistics I saw is over the next 5 years, 50% of the industry will be retired.
Wow.
So there's a lot of new young blood coming up in the industry. With that, that also means there's going to be new young blood in the pesticide police part of things. And a lot of these guys are working in bureaucratic type environments, with lots of oversight and stuff. I mean, it's government, right? And all it takes is the right one of them to need or look for an opportunity to prove themselves, prove their worth, to get excited by mishaps, missteps, even misspeaks that they see on the internet, and pursue it as aggressively as they can to get it either rectified or taken down. And my number one big fear, because already, lawn care in general is the whipping child, is the whipping post of agriculture, right? So, we look at glyphosate, for instance, and I'm not vying for glyphosate safety or any of that. This is a total apathetic point of view, but this is reality. What happened with the glyphosate court case that was carried out, that lost their insurance as long as they distributed glyphosate. And so we had major distributors lose the ability to sell glyphosate into turf. Did that happen in agriculture? No. We bared the brunt of the court case there upon our shoulders. We were the ones who had to suffer the consequences of someone else's actions, right? And so with that being kind of a model and that being repeated, and we can go back on that with MSMA and other things that have been pulled from, DERSBAN was pulled from us long before it was taken out of ag. It's repeated that typically if something is deemed a problem, they take it away from turf first and try not to take it away from agriculture. With that being the background and kind of the history's trend, my fear is that it takes one person coming up in the regulatory type of style to see what we're doing as being overcritical of it. And even to the point where even if we just misspeak, they come after it. We already have a negative connotation on us. Oh, we're luxury. It's flaunting luxury. It's flaunting wealth. When in actuality, there's a very big environmental piece to what we do. We can kind of move into that next. But how I feel about it is that I'm nervous, excited, and cautious all at the same time.
That makes sense. I mean, yeah. I mean, you're saying you're nervous, excited, and cautious for a lot of people taking interest in lawn care and becoming more enthusiastic about it in the YouTube world. That's what you're saying.
Yes, because with. And this is one of my catchphrases I say is oversimplification is devaluation,
sure.
Right? And I feel like that in the game of algorithms and content strategy, the easier you can make something appear, the more attractive it is. Because if you can cram 4 years of experience into 2 minutes of teaching time, then people are going to want to watch that.
Yeah.
And people are going to put that into practice because, literally in 2 minutes, I can learn how to do whatever it is I need to do. That's the beauty of YouTube, right? But unfortunately, when you're caring for something that is a living organism, it's hard to reduce the maintenance of that organism into a 2-minute soundbite or a 5-step soundbite. It can be done, but there's a lot of asterisks that need to be in place in order to provide some caveats and options and account for some of the variabilities you see between my neighborhood and your neighborhood.
Sure. So going into, segueing into what you were saying, we can talk about in a minute about the environmental stuff and like the positive impacts, good practices for lawn care and everything like that. Because you and I have talked about that a little bit in the past about just the positive things that can actually come from caring for a lawn appropriately, obviously. Just like what I know you've talked to me about, like the carbon uptake of grass and just plants in general when things are being done correctly. So, I'll use that for you to jump on or into that piece of it, going off of what we were just talking about.
Yeah. So, in the most simple of ways, when we're talking about plants, any plant, whether it's turf grass or trees or whatever, why they're generally regarded as positive assets to the environment is photosynthesis as a process. You're taking sunlight and carbon dioxide and turning it into energy, into carbohydrates, right? So you're pulling carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, converting it into carbohydrates that are typically stored in the majority in the root system, and the plant is expelling oxygen, and that's that whole part of the process. So effectively, you're capturing carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen in its place. What a beautiful symbiotic relationship with humans, right? As we expel carbon dioxide and inhale oxygen, it would be part of our pathways to
Mm-hmm.
get to convert into energy, right? So, the piece that often gets overlooked is that as they categorize or group lawn care into being an industry of excess or an industry of misuse or inappropriate use or relatively regarded as stuff. There were some states that were, designating guys who treated turf as, non-critical. And the fact of the matter is that there's data out there right now that if you took into account the hidden carbon cost of mowing, maintaining a lawn managed under best management practices, you are actively sequestering more carbon dioxide than you're emitting, than your carbon costs are to actually maintain a lawn. And that is powerful because when you start to take into account the density in the sheer number of leaves you have in a lawn, and you compare that, say in a 10,000 square foot lawn, the number of leaves you have there working with photosynthesis, how much land space would be required, how much acreage would be required to have the exact same number of leaves across a forest? You would require so much more area to have the same number of leaves that you would in 10,000 square feet of turf. So the carbon sequestration rate of turf grass is 4 times higher than that of an equal area of trees.
Wow.
I'm not making the
Right.
argument that we need to do away with trees. No, everything occurs in balance, right? So why I think it's a beautiful and a great thing that or two on the property or whatever the case may be, symbiotic relationship between all of those plants there too.
Sure.
So what I what I am actively working on and what my day-to-day consists of is my whole end game in this ordeal in my career is if I would feel successful if I was able to shift the tide of lawn care into having a negative perception into a positive perception in regards to the impact it has on the environment. And that is doable. And there's a lot of headway being made, not just in academia, but also just in real world entrepreneurship, innovation that we're seeing from guys out in the field doing the damn
Sure.
thing. So that's what I'm going after.
I'm hoping the video didn't freeze, or because on my end when I'm looking at it in the studio, it looks like things are frozen. So I'm hoping it didn't mess up, but we'll just keep going and hope for the best. Um, okay, it looks like we're getting back on track. So with that being said, just kind of going back to more of the DIYer perspective and stuff, like what do you like when you have a new homeowner that's reaching out to you, um and they're wanting to take care of it themselves, like what do you tell them to start mastering first? And then like in regards to starting to apply fertilizers and all the ides and those types of things, like what do you like, how do you tell them to start into that, to be um, successful, efficient, but also responsible?
I don't know. I I don't. I would say this. My content, and I would say there's not a lot of people that reach out to me that are like, "Hey, I just moved into a house. It's my first yard. How do I get started?" I probably haven't gotten one of those emails in 3 years.
Okay, well,
So
what would you tell
if
somebody?
if it was me, I would tell them. I'd say step number one: get a soil test. Go just bite the bullet. Even if you cannot interpret it, you don't know what the hell you're doing, go get some soil, put it in a bag, send it to a lab, and get a test done. Have you a Malik 3 done on it, and then let's look at it together, and then we can start to build a program, if you will, around what kind of information we're working with.
Sure.
Because without it, you're kind of just taking shots in the dark, and you could get lucky, and you could get lucky for a relatively long period of time. But again, as we start talking about best management practices and trying to change the tide of lawn care from a negative into a positive, if we know and can quantitatively deduce why we are applying each individual input at the rate we're applying, if we can make that justification, then the overall result is that typically we can apply a little bit less because it's not misguided, and it shows a pattern of responsibility that we have as applicators or DIY homeowners or whatever the case may be. Build the appropriate foundation upon which you can build your house. And that is a soil test.
Yeah, because so I that's one of the things that, like when I have neighbors or family members or something like that ask me, they're like, well, what could I do, or where should I start? And I've mentioned soil tests because I'm like, well, that really gives you a good platform to stand on to tell you where you need to go and those types of things. But that's like foreign language to them because it's not, all you see on the commercials and stuff like that is, here's your step one, here's your step two, here's your step three, here's your step four. And that's really it. Like it's rarely, if ever, talked about. Like you can't go to Home Depot, and I don't even know if they sell soil tests or any sort of soil tests there, to help somebody get it. And maybe that's because maybe because it's easier to start getting caught in the weeds and it's more confusing for people there. I don't know. Maybe that's why it is. It's probably you can't make as much money doing it that way by telling people to do it the right way. I don't know. I'm just speculating. It's just my. But you know what I mean? Like that's when I hear people ask me, or when I have people ask me like where to start, that's usually where I recommend. They're like, oh, that sounds complicated. I don't want to do that. I just want to go get a bag of fertilizer and put it in the lawn.
So you're exactly right. It is. It sends people down rabbit holes, and at the end of the day, it takes a special kind of person to want to explore a rabbit hole. But again, it kind of goes back to my point of by circumventing the soil test, you are already beginning to oversimplify what it means to care for something.
Right.
Because we're not just caring for turf, we're also acting in a very responsible way towards the environment, right?
Yep.
And so in order to be as environmentally responsible as possible, we have to have some sort of foundation upon which we build everything we do. So if you don't start with the soil test, yes, it's so much easier. I promise you, I could have had a way better career. I could have a way bigger YouTube channel. I could have a way bigger consulting base if I just told people the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go out with triple 13. That's all you got to do. You got to go out with triple 13. And we can spin it up 10 different ways from Sunday to get you a triple 13, but that's what you need to be doing is triple 13. It will work. There is no doubt about it. You can go put down triple 13 10 different ways from Sunday, and every single time it is going to work. But how long does it take before you're over applying phosphorus? How long does it take before you're over applying potassium? How long does it take before you're over applying nitrogen? But the recommendation was once a month, I'll go apply triple 13, 10 pounds per thousand. Yes, it works, but are you really providing any kind of lasting environmental impact there? You're
Right.
not. And that's when the tide starts to turn and shift the boat back towards the negative. So if I'm ever preparing anybody, just bite the bullet, get ready. It seems complex at first, but it's not. Just get a soil test and let's see where we actually should be starting.
Well, because I also think about like for my case at this new house, when I started fertilizing last year, before I started fertilizing, I had my soil test done, and I saw what the pH level was at. But I really had I knew that was high, but I didn't know like the ultimate effects of what high pH had on plants' ability to take up nutrients and those types of things. So somebody that didn't have any person, because I feel like what I do is probably more than what most homeowners are going to go do, they would have probably just kept pushing fertilizer, or they would have maybe gotten frustrated because the lawn wasn't greening up or doing something that they thought it should. So then they would have hired somebody. Then that person, whether or not that company actually does soil tests, because I don't believe I've seen so many companies come out and treat lawns and they don't do soil tests from what I can see, and they just kind of, it seems like they follow some sort of regiment that is like standard or whatever. And then that neighbor may not get the response from them, so they'll fire them. They'll pick up another company. I could see that happening in my scenario if somebody had the same type of situation that didn't have the same desire or interest to go maybe figure out why it's not doing what it should do.
Yeah, I mean it is, and I see it all over the place, and yes, you're exactly right. And something as simple as pH inhibiting a lawn from turning as green as it should be, and people are looking at their neighbors' houses and they're all turning green and theirs not, and they're applying more and more and more. They get caught. They're chasing the dragon, and nothing ever works. And so immediately, and this is, I don't know what it is, but if it's kind of, I don't know, maybe it's a man's mentality. Like for instance, if I'm trying to thread a screw into a nut, right? And at first it gives me a little resistance. The first thing I do is I start to bear down on it and try and force it through there. Just and how many do you have to strip your threads before you're like, okay, that bit a little bit more aggressively. Let me back that out and try it again. Make sure I had it seated correctly. It's like you kind of have to learn through brute force too. And I think the same thing kind of applies to lawn care. That we can tell these things like start with the soil test or what, but you get it in your head. You heard this old wives' tale. Well, the first thing I need to go out with lime because I'm in the southeast, and therefore if I'm in the southeast, I know I got that acid soil, so I better get down with some lime. And you put down lime, and then you eventually nothing is responding, and you go get a soil test, and your pH is a 8.3, and you're like, why? What am I doing again?
So that I've that leads me to a question I've had, because I've had some of the neighbors around here, they have companies like, oh, they did lime, this, that, and the other. I'm like, why did they do lime? Did they do a soil test? And you're like, I don't think so. And they look at their thing and they ask the people, and they don't do a soil test. They just throw lime down. So I was wondering if in my scenario, if people were treating my lawn on that in the past, before we ever moved in, if they were treating it on the standard like recommendation of you always need to put lime down every year, could that have led the lawn to become that alkaline?
That becoming that high, probably not.
Okay.
I don't think years. I mean, you would have to be applying significant amounts every year, and I can say, being on the side of lawn care things, it takes a special customer that would sign off on the cost for me to come in and amend with the amount of lime it takes to make a real lasting impression, because you show up the cost. If you pull up to a property, you will say your yard's 10,000 square feet, and I pull up and I need to apply 2,000 pounds an acre to move the material. And so the time it would take to spread 10 bags on your property, or the time it would take or the cost to spread 10 bags on your property, just the material in and of itself, it starts to add up fast for the receiver of that service. And all of a sudden they get a bill for a few $100s. And they're like, you just spread lime. Lime is $5 a bag. Why did it cost $300? I'm like, well, I had to put a friggin' whole pallet on your yard to make a real lasting impression. So a lot of times, when a lot of lawn care guys are doing this, you may only apply enough lime to offset the amount of fertilizer you applied that year, right? So say, you knew you applied 3 pounds in, and you could probably, with enough, this much lime, we'll say, it's going to be 120 pounds of lime or whatever would offset the amount of free hydrogen produced by that 3 pounds in. So
out.
I'm going to apply 120 pounds of lime instead of 1,000 pounds of lime. So no, I don't think that was the case. I think you're just on limestone, and that's why.
So that's the other thing, because I know limestone is very prevalent in this area, or at least when you see like the highways being cutting through a hill, you can tell like that looks like limestone, but then supposedly companies make the recommendation of like, oh well, you need to put lime down because you're in this area like that. I don't know. That's what I think about that as well. That just doesn't make sense to me. So I don't know.
There is, and I would encourage everybody that if you want to hire a lawn care company, look for the boutique guys. And I hate that word. That is one of my least favorite words in the English language. But look for the specialized guys. It's going to cost a little bit more, and just understand that it's going to cost more, but you're paying for the knowledge that those people have, and you're paying for the peace of mind that, well, what they're going to be putting on your property is going to be environmentally responsible, and it is going to be conducive for the success of your property too.
What do you mean by boutique guys? Like what would their name look like, or company name look like?
Yeah, you're gonna have to go down the wormhole on that one. So I don't think you're gonna find a name or a kind of red flag signifier. But if it looks like a franchise, smells like a franchise, tastes like a franchise, tread carefully, I guess it would be the way I would look. Because then, when you're dealing with franchises, a lot of times that responsibility falls on the technical ability of the applicator themselves. And don't get me wrong, there are thousands of phenomenal applicators out there that work for these big companies, and they do awesome work. And they carry the company on their back as they trudge through. But occasionally, too, you find a few bad apples. It's like, and you take your car in for an oil change, and one of the technicians tell you that you need whatever else done too. So there's bad apples in any industry.
Sure. Well, on a much lighter note, we're going to jump to my segment called Keyboard Warriors. This is a segment I started a couple episodes ago, and it is all about bringing the not negative, but the trollers to the light that many people may or may not see. As YouTubers, we get some trollers that come in there, and Matt has some interesting ones. So we're just going to dive into these and have a little fun. Viewer discretion is advised. No, I'm just kidding. But he does. We tried to keep some of these clean. They're clean. So we're going to jump into the first one. Matt, before we go into it, do you have anything to say?
No, man. Let's do this.
The first one. Keep your chemical blank off my newsfeed. You are the reason that there is toxic algae in Lake Erie and the other 4 lakes. You are killing our lakes by the runoff of the chems in the watershed. Shame. Killing the marine life and poisoning our waters. Reporting you.
Okay. There's a story behind every one of these, and that's why I selected them. I got banned from Facebook from this lady, and I'll tell you the story. There was a gentleman who owned a lawn doctor franchise in the I guess I can say the area, in the Michigan area. And the guy was he was a great technician, very knowledgeable, ran a great business, even knew the guys he had working for him. I knew they were great technicians. I had worked with them a lot. And what we started doing was mapping the areas of runoff from largely agricultural communities into the waterways that she was particularly talking about. The overwhelming majority of point source solution was more than likely based on the structure of the flow of water into her body of water was from agriculture, not lawn care. And so I spelled a way to help her understand, non-threatening, just look, this is more than likely what you're actually dealing with, and just want to bring it to you. That way, you're not throwing a small business actually out there doing a good job for the industry, being good stewards of the environment as well. And that was her response to me. And sure enough, Facebook banned me and would not. It was like 3 months or something before Facebook as a result of that. And they deleted my whole Facebook. So I had to rejoin as a new person. They let me download all my old information, but I had to start a whole new account.
Wow.
Yeah.
It looks like some of your fans in here knew who this one was. Even though I blocked it out. All right. On to the next one. Why are you letting a completely drunk man on the radio with all the curse words and can't even complete sentences? He is playing Rage Against the Machine, anti-police music. What message is that sending? Not very smart.
Okay, I got a story behind this one too. And in total transparency, actually, can I play a little jingle?
Sure.
Would that be okay? I'm gonna play a little jingle real quick, and then we'll talk about that.
All right. Should we be hearing anything now? I don't.
Okay, so there was someone who
Matt, we didn't hear the jingle.
Oh, you could not hear the jingle?
No.
What? That was my Bow Nose Turf jingle. And I'm sure there's people out there that know. I did a whole radio show on it, and this person wrote into my radio that information right here, and it was really interesting because I actually knew the guy, and at the time, and he had wrote in on the day where I had found out Site One had filed a lawsuit against me for copyright infringement. So the lawsuit was very hostile. It was not a good one or a fun one. We have more money than you would ever know what to do with, and you will be forced into this one where was about how their lawsuit read, and I was like, this is unfortunate. And so me feeling like a rebel, I was like, I'm gonna get on the radio today, and I'm gonna play some Rage Against the Machine, and I'm gonna scream at the microphone until so I did. I had one of those days where I was just throwing it all out there. It's small little guy company going after the big boys kind of thing, and I think I played "Killing in the Name of" was the song I played.
I know
so
that song.
it's good Rage Against the Machine tune, and that got sent in, and I was so confused because one, YouTube, I just don't, so that way I make any egregious mistakes,
Sure.
or I got to be careful and ginger. And two, I knew the fact that they would attempt to go to my boss in an effort to get me pulled off the air instead of going to me. I thought that was just extra priceless. So I turned it onto a bit on the radio station because the guy's name was Bo. I'm not going to use his last name. Turned into a bit on the radio station. We did a segment every day called Bo Knows Turf. And it was this real funny little jingle. It was little clown music. And I would say, Bo Knows Turf. And we would do these real ridiculous old wives' tales and talk about scientifically why they were old wives' tales and not factual behind that one.
I wish we could have heard the jingle. I don't know why it wasn't working.
Yeah, that makes me real upset. I don't know. I think it has something the way I've got this ported through my board.
I know I've already said this in the chat already, but or in the stream tonight's show. I don't know why things are being so choppy. I don't know why Matt's video keeps getting big and small. I just don't know why it's doing that tonight, but I do apologize. Hopefully the audio is coming through good, but anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. I'm seeing everything you guys are seeing, and I know how bad it is. Anyway.
Can you hear this? Okay.
One last comment. This one's a short one, but I kind of like these short and sweet ones. Never got past the intro. My time is worth more than your ego.
I beg to differ because my ego is very valuable to me. Clearly, that's why I invite so much controversy into my life. It's purely because of my ego. But so this one was okay. When I got started in YouTube, the trend was that you did these artsy fartsy intros with like these cool camera shots and techno music leading into it. And so all these old videos are full of those, 1 minute, 2 minute intros of just like stuff I saw while I was out in the field because I thought that was cool at the time. Because a lot of these videos are 3 or 4 years old, and so anyway, that guy commented on that, and it was so beautiful because I saw the comment like 3 years later when I no longer thought that stuff was cool, and I was like, man, he is so right. That I need to pin this comment because he is actually 100% factual.
So I had a commenter from one of the last episodes say that they liked the Keyboard Warrior section, but he wanted me to talk about some of the positive things that people say and like what jumps to our mind, what's a comment we think of. I don't have comments to put up on the screen, but comments that we think of when we think of like something positive we've heard. I know in my instance, I have way more positive comments on my videos that are encouraging and those types of things that are negative than negative one. If anything, they're not negative. I've just been seeing constructive ones like, hey, you might want to, turn the audio down or something like that. Because there are people that have been polite about it, but there are those people that just choose not to be polite about giving constructive criticism. They feel like they need to like knock you down to the ground and sit on your face and whatever else. But I don't know. I'm really grateful for a lot of the people that generally give really good, nice comments. I can't remember the. It's bad of me that I can't remember the guy's name that told me to do this, but he's been a follower of mine since the beginning, and he's always leaving good stuff, just encouraging stuff, and that's one of the things. That's why I like to keep doing videos because you have people that are encouraging. No one wants to keep doing stuff if they constantly get dogged on. But Matt, what about you? Is there anything like comes to your mind that when you think of like something that like you did a video and you had something that came up that was like, man, that person's really nice for saying that or something like that?
Listen, I have to say that, you asked me for the Keyboard Warrior to look up bad comments, and I had to put a lot of effort into that. The YouTube community in general is, at least right now in the lawn care community, is the nicest, most supportive on personal levels, on family levels. I mean, it's an overwhelming amount of support at times, and it is, I can't speak highly enough about it. One of my one of my, this is just one of hundreds that I could ping to, but it really stuck with me. I actually had a wife send me an email one time, and she said, Matt, my husband is an avid your afternoon streams. He sits on the patio every afternoon. I'm not sure if you do this or not, but his 40th birthday is this Sunday. Birthday shout out for your show this Friday. His name is Jason. We live in Denton, Texas. Let me know if you'd like to fulfill this request. I don't know why, but this picture, I was like, really, I occupy this guy gets home from work. He goes, he busts at me while I scream at the microphone, taking out my frustrations over a stupid business deal, or cockeyed over someone misapplying the gate, and I scream at the microphone. I'm like, this guy wants to. And actually, I've gotten to know him on a very personal level now, and it's just, yeah, it goes so far and goes so long in these things.
Yeah, that I would agree with you. It does, to me, all those things make a huge difference, and even if it's just like a really short one, all of those short ones just add up to, being something positive and encouraging. So I'm trying to find that comment, that person that left that comment, because they told me to do that, because I wanted to give them a little shout out on here as well. But while I'm doing that, you sent me a photo, and I know I've heard the story, or you talk about it briefly on some of your shows, but you shared me a photo of a shed that doesn't look like it's doing too hot. It was really hot at one point, but I'd like to hear the story again behind this little number.
So one day, I got this bright idea. I was going to burn off all the dormant Bermuda grass in my backyard. I'm in the transition zone. I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee. My front yard's fescue. My backyard is Bermuda. And I was like, I'm just going to burn it all off. I don't feel like getting out here and scalping it down and all that. I'm just going to burn it. It's surrounded by fescue, and I've got water on one side of me. So, and it's separated from my house by gravel. I'm like, there's no risk to this. Let it burn. So I get out there and I make me a couple different fire spots and just let it take off, and kept an eye on it and let it all burn out. And as it got around my shed, I've got two sheds that kind of sit next to each other. One is wood and one is metal, and I kind of stomped it out as it went along that, and I let it move past, and I felt good about it, and came back inside. And 3, maybe 4 hours later, I felt like I smelled smoke in my office, and I looked out my office window. Perfect view from my shed, and shooting 15 feet out of the doors of this shed is a flame that looks like it's launching a Falcon Heavy into outer space. And I don't even know what to do. I mean, I had to marvel at the size of the fire projecting out of this shed for a minute. Then
Thank you, Action Video.
I run outside, and the only water hose I have is one of those that when you turn it off, it coils back in on itself. You know what I'm talking about? And when you turn it back on, it stretches back out. That's all I got. That thing is not known for putting out large volumes of water. And it doesn't even reach the shed. So I've got it stretched all the way, and I'm reaching with my thumb over it, trying to get enough oomph on it to get it to even spray to the shed. And I mean, it's just instantly evaporating as it hits it, right? It's not even putting a dent in this fire. 10 minutes go by, and I hear a fire engine coming, and I'm like, boy, I am in big trouble. And the firefighter is in full suit, and he jumps off the truck, and he grabs this hose, and he is walking with purpose towards this shed, and I stepped in front of him in between I don't know if I was like trying to use my body as a shield and hide the fact that like a piece of my life is on fire behind me. But I did. I was like, oh, don't worry about it. It's good. Just let it burn. And the guy just stiff arms me right out of the way. He does the Heisman pose and just knocks me right down and keeps burning right to the shed and put it out in, probably like 30 seconds or something like that. And I was humiliated, and he's not talking to me, and he goes back to the truck and they get the hose all put up and stuff. And like, they had nothing to say to me. And then the chief came around afterwards and was much more lighthearted about the situation and was asking what I did. And I explained what I did. And she's like, oh yeah, that's common. We've done this before. So I had burned my shed down inadvertently. The metal shed of all things too, not the wood shed. It was the metal shed I burned down.
Is it still there, or did you take it all down?
For the most part, it's all still got some tin laying there, though.
So it probably looked like it was like you were doing like a static rocket engine test.
Yes, that's exactly what it looked like. It was the SN8 test, except we had it in the middle of Knoxville in someone's backyard. And it was hot too, man. Like, even, I've got this little rinky-dink 25-foot hose, and I'm maybe 20 feet away from the fire, with my thumb over it, trying to get the stream to land on it. And you could just feel the heat coming off of it, man. I mean, it was brutal.
Was there any like gas in there or anything?
No, it was actually empty. So I didn't use it for storage because I've got the other little detached shed, and then I've got a detached garage too. That's where I keep all my stuff.
There was no chance of anything like exploding in the fire or something like that and throwing.
No. Keep any of that stuff at home. He's in the lab.
Sure.
I promise.
Action Video asks, what do you think about rabbit poo / manure being spread on top of a lawn?
I think it's fine. I don't see any problem with it. Just be careful handling it. I believe rabbit poop is going to be gram-negative bacteria, which can be a little bit harder on humans, some of the bacteria. So just be careful handling it and wash your hands. But other than that, it should be a good organic fertilizer for you.
I mean, if you have enough of it, you could probably fill a hopper full, just open it wide open. I mean, those would be some pretty big prills, but
yeah, it's ready pelletized, ready to go, baby. Lock and load.
All right. Well, we are a little over an hour, and I wanted to, before I go on, Chad Fleming was the guy that told me to do the talk about the people that leave nice comments. I don't know if he leaves comments in anybody else's videos, but Chad Fleming is the guy.
Yeah. He is.
Well, we're over an hour on the show, and I like to keep these a little around that time. So we're gonna start wrapping things up here. But before we do, I just wanted to give Matt an opportunity to maybe give us a little taste test of anything coming up this year, if you can.
Yeah. I'll say this on the granular side of things, everything is trending in the right direction, is looking good. Everything you were used to last year, just be psychologically prepared to see a lot of the same things this year. On the liquid side of things, the new thing, the research piece that's going out is a product we developed that we're calling Prefix. We're using actually nanotechnology in this and combining it with the peptides and a couple of other goodies in there. And the way this prefix works is to offer a certain amount of biostimulant activity to allow the plant to power through any root pruning effects that occur from dinitroalanine herbicides, pre-emergent herbicides that we use, like dimension, prodiamine, pendimethalin, so that way, hopefully, we can make root pruning on our desirable turf grasses a thing of the past. And again, always trending towards that thing, towards environmental responsibility, right? So actually, all of it is organically produced. Even the nanoparticles it starts originally as a mined source material, and then of course the peptides are an organically sourced material, and then we use fulvic acid as well in that. So. Yeah, so we got that, and someone asked when's Carbon X back in stock. It won't be Carbon X. I can tell you that Carbon X will never be back in stock. But if you want to check some out, you can go to renovo.eco, and I don't know, that maybe here in the next month or so, something like that. I don't know.
Well, before everybody heads out, if you wouldn't mind giving the video a thumbs up, that helps me out a little bit of bringing these kind of videos to more people, and bringing more people into these shows is always more fun. So before you head out, be sure to give a like. And I hope this show was at least good for people to hang out. I had a fun time. Matt, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate you spending an hour or so with me and all these great people in our community. It does mean a lot for somebody like you that's a professional in the industry and just has a boatload of stuff going on, for you to spend this kind of time with me. So thanks so much for coming on the show.
No, I love it, and thank you for having me. And Ben, I love the hell out of you too, and thank you for all the crap you've put up with me and us over the last year or two too. So the pleasure is mine, sir. Thank you.
Well, hopefully we get to hang out, and hopefully some of these people in the chat, we all get to hang out this year at the GIE. That'd be a lot of fun, because I know 2019 was a blast, and hopefully we can have a good time in October this year. So that's all, guys. Thanks again for stopping by. I hope you guys have a great weekend. And next week we will have Jake the Lawn Kid in the house. Looking forward to seeing that kid on the show and just talking shop with him. I appreciate all the support, everybody stopping by. Thanks for everything, guys. We'll see you next week.